the introduction stellar. So I was going to talk about Poetic Places, obviously. I'll start by explaining who I am and why I am talking to you. So I'm better known, perhaps, for my work through Time Image. I've digitised and worked on a couple of film archives, done some exhibitions and pop-up shops and stuff. But I'm currently a creative entrepreneur in residence here at the British Library. And digital producer the rest of the time, which tells you absolutely nothing. But I basically help people with collections do digital stuff, whatever that means. Building websites, or, as I've said, digitising things, or making games. That's all pretty fun. So anyway, I've been working on Poetic Places for about 6 months part-time. We got funding for the project back in August, I believe. And, as many of you have become aware, the app is now available in the app stores. Hooray! It works on Android and iOS, mobile and tablet, if you feel so inclined to walk around with your iPad. Slightly different format, but it still works. So, explain where we've come from. Oh good, PowerPoint's marmalised the transitions. Anyway, so Creative Entrepreneur Residence Scheme is a scheme by Creative Works London, which is a funding body that is sadly coming to the end of days. They're having a big festival to celebrate their stuff at the end of April, and I recommend you all go. It's funded several rounds of creative entrepreneurs, and what it does is it promotes innovation and experimentation by partnering up entrepreneurs and artists with partner institutions, so a lot of universities and places like the British Library, the British Museum, stuff like that. The creative entrepreneurs who are successful are awarded 5k to do a project, and we've had about 6 months to do it because unfortunately Creative Works is closing down. So it's been quite a tight deadline to go from zero to app. So my original idea, the thing that inspired it was I was walking around and I was thinking about all the fictions you have of places and how you can be completely unaware of it. So I read a steampunk book, and they've got a professor of the occult. Where does he work? He works at the British Museum, because where else would he work? And I thought, this is fabulous. Like, there's all sorts of stuff that comes out of that. And I wanted to explore that. And I was a bit vague on the technology at first. I said, we're going to use iBeacons and such like, because, you know, it's nice to be specific in your applications. This is not what we're using ultimately, but more on that in a minute. And I put an expression of interest and was very fortunate to find a partner in the Digital Scholarship Department at the British Library who do all sorts of cool stuff with collections and encouraging reuse and stuff. They have a fabulous website if you want to look it up. So the British Library kindly helped me refine my idea down a little bit from something so vast and nebulous. So these are the aims of Poetic Places, and they were not all there from the beginning. I've tried to approach the project with a flexible mindset which has shaped the development of it all. So, I realised quite early on we're going to try and make a free native app for Android and iOS devices, because if you're going to bring stuff into the physical world, it seems an easy way to do it through mobile phones, because so many people have them now. And I will explain why it had to be a native app shortly. So, aspire to give a renewed sense of place and to bring together writing, and there is no audio in the app at present, writing and visual materials to mean more as a combination than they might do alone, and to try and encourage serendipitous discovery, so stumbling across stuff rather than going out and looking for things. So you may get tours of content and apps that are designed to be followed around and stuff. I didn't want to go down that route. I wanted people to be able to find stuff without trying, whilst just ambling about. So we use geofencing and push notifications to enable this rather than iBeacons. We thought about using iBeacons, but the notion of trying to glue an iBeacon to the side of Westminster Bridge made me nervous. It would have been a lot of logistical problems, and I probably would have been arrested ultimately. However, whilst I was very interested in the serendipitous discovery, I thought it was also important to make it accessible to people who weren't in the places used in the app, that weren't in places described, because not everybody can travel, and all the content at present in the app is related to London locations, because we had to have some kind of limit on it somewhere, and but not everybody lives in London, of course, despite what some news sources would have you believe. And I also wanted to try and make the app in a way that would be low cost and low complexity, so that individuals and small organisations might be able to replicate the effort if they wanted. So I'm not a coder. I'm fairly tech savvy, I'll be honest, but I'm not a coder, and I wanted to try and find a way of making an app that did this sort of thing, that was, as I say, replicatable. So here were the technical requirements for making the app. I didn't think this was a particularly demanding list of requirements. I was wrong. So as I've said before, to notify people when they stumble across stuff, we had to have geofencing/GPS triggered events, and they had to be able to create push notifications. This basically means it has to be a native app. I'm not very pro-app, I'm pro-responsive website. You see a lot of apps and they don't need to be apps, they could be responsive websites and then they would be more accessible. But tragically, my idea for this discovery mechanism meant that it had to be an app, which brings a whole lot of baggage with it, including dealing with the app stores. More on that story later. I also, this media-friendly requirement didn't occur to me at first, but when you're looking at app-building platforms, it's remarkable how fast they date. So I found a couple of platforms that looked great, they got the triggering, the GPS stuff, but then you weren't able to zoom in on the pictures, or it would only let you have tiny pictures and they didn't resize based on your device, so they got written off. And obviously it also had to be affordable. A lot of app platforms seem to have the model where you pay a small amount or nothing to build the app, but then you have to pay quite a lot of money to push it to the app stores, which isn't always obvious. And so it took me quite a long time to work through a lot of examples of app building platforms to find one that worked. One thing that we did consider as a solution to this was using a hub app, so something that is a native app but then lets people bring in lots of different tours from different people and stuff like that. The favourite contender was Izzy Travel, which is free to use and is quite good and is still being developed. But Izzy didn't quite work for us for a couple of reasons. One, it's quite focused on audio as it stands, and audio was not the focus of this app, Poetic Places. It also focuses on, it doesn't focus, but it is more geared towards tours, or it was at the point that we were working on it. And one thing Poetic Places does not provide is tours. The idea is, as I said, not to be led around. And also I wanted quite a strong focus on visual elements in the app, and because it is a set format, it didn't quite work as I'd envisaged. So what we eventually stumbled upon was Good Barber. They are a Corsican outfit. They support app building all over the world, and they did everything I needed basically. They are not really designed for what I've done. They are, a lot of their marketing seems to be targeting shop owners and people who want to let other shop owners, for example, who want to let people know when they've got a special offer on and that they should run that up and have a look. I've done some horrible things to the back end of my Good Barber app to make it operate the way it operates. It has the flexibility that if you're good at coding, you can kind of jimmy it around a bit, but I've mainly just made it connect in ways it's not really designed to. The other thing about Good Barber is that they have quite a nice pricing model, which I thought I'd share with you to give you an idea of how much this sort of thing costs if you want to do it yourself. They often have half-price offers on. Hooray! So, anyway, let's talk about the content quickly. Can you tell me when I get over time, by the way? Or near time? Yeah, cool. So, content curation. I've mentioned there's no audio. A lot of people were thinking that there would be audio in it. and expressed an interest in that, and it is something I would like to add going forward. But it was a bridge too far for this project at this stage. I had originally thought perhaps we could use old recordings of people reading poems from archives, but the copyright implications are kind of horrible. And I thought perhaps I could record it myself in a wardrobe, but I didn't want to inflict that on you all. So, no audio at this stage. So, we focused on text, which is not just poems, it's also poetic prose. Because why just have one when you can have both? I brought in evocative images to try and give you a different sense of the poem, or, sorry, the prose, and a little bit of context, because this can really change the way you read the poem and appreciate the place that the poem is about. I did want to spend a moment to mention copyright. I didn't think about copyright when I started the project because I'm an idiot. I've historically worked with copyright owners and very, very old collections. Copyright clearance is incredibly time-consuming, both for images and for text, and potentially very expensive. But I've got a motto at the moment, which is, it's not a problem, it's a feature. And this helped me refine it a bit, to be honest. This was useful. So it was an opportunity, I realised, to draw from and highlight more open collections. So collections that allow reuse for, well, this is a non-commercial project, but for lots of different kinds of projects, and archives that have high-res images online and stuff. For example, the British Library's Figure collection. There's over 1 million images on here, and you can use them in whatever way you like, and it's really cool. Go have a look. So you'll find content from these guys in the app. You also find content, for example, from the Yale Centre for British Art, which you may never have heard of. I hadn't until I started, but they're pretty great too. And because it's British art, there's lots of stuff in Britain in it. Hooray! I think most of the images on the postcards you can grab out front from the Yale Centre for British Art, actually. So anyway, but this, again, was useful because it made me think about the curation a bit more. So, because these are all very old pictures and they're out of copyright and stuff, old images for old poems. Where possible, I've tried to find images that are contemporary to the poem in question. And I'll give you an example in a minute. This isn't always possible. It is remarkably difficult to find an out-of-copyright picture of St Paul's in the snow, or indeed any painting of St Paul's in the snow. Equally difficult, Tavistock Square, because apparently all Bloomsbury squares look the same. And in those instances, I drew on Flickr Commons and found some nice timeless images to try and give you a sense of it. So, example time. Do I need to read this out, or would you just like to read it to yourselves? Silence.
We're going to make you read it.
You're going to make it. The last group did, so I'll give you a moment to read it. That'll do. I've not got that much time. So, you can keep reading while I talk, don't listen to me. So this is a sonnet by Keats. And here's a little question. When I say Vauxhall to you, what do you think of? Do you think of the train station? A lot of people do. That's not what it's referring to. It's referring to Vauxhall Gardens, which is a small, nondescript park near Vauxhall train station. If you like your Regency romance, you will probably know where this is going. Vauxhall Gardens was a huge, spectacular pleasure garden that existed for absolutely ages in Vauxhall, funnily enough. Unfortunately closed in 1859. So this is the text that goes with the poem in the app to try and give you a sense of what you're actually reading about and stuff. And I also, in my research, discovered that Keats wrote about this woman a number of times. So he wrote this sonnet 4 years after he saw her at Vauxhall Gardens. Like, she stuck around, and she appears in other works of his too. So the images that have gone with this, oh, this is a real treasure trove, Vauxhall Gardens. This is what it looked like. It's amazing. It was spectacular. There's I had so many pictures to pick from here. There's about 6 in the app, but I had about 20 in a folder going, oh, I don't know which one's my favourite. And so by including images like this, it puts the poem in a different context, and it puts the place in a different context. So we might say, oh, well, perhaps he met her strolling the promenades, or saw her. I'm not sure he talked to her. just kind of staring at her across the room. But perhaps he met her in these promenades, or perhaps he met her at a slightly raucous Regency dance. And there's all sorts of pictures of promenading and these spectacular pavilions and stuff. And I guess my point is that by bringing all these things together, you learn a little bit about the history of the place. You completely change your perception of it. And next time you go to Vauxhall Gardens, perhaps you'll think of this, or Vauxhall train station, perhaps you'll think of this and what was once there. And I guess it also, I hope that this sort of thing will inspire people to go somewhere with those ideas, to write or draw about the places, or even think about these archives in a new way and how they might be used. So, how much of time? I'm okay. Gosh, I've rushed it a bit, sorry. But, so the app is available. It's in the wild, but it's not fully mature. I've got a lot of ideas. I'll try and rush through them. So I would like to bring audio in at some point. I think it would be nice. Everybody approaches stuff in different ways, so when I think about stuff, I tend to think about the spatiality of things, which is why I'm here talking to you about places and stuff. But I know a lot of people prefer an audio input. They don't necessarily want to read it, they want to be able to listen to it and look about them. So that is something I'd like to do going forward. I intend to create a web resource to match the content in the app. Although there will have to be 1 or 2 omissions because I have licensed approximately half a dozen items that are now in the app. 1 poem, a few images that I really thought conveyed the poem or the place in a new way. As I've said before, the content is primarily London-based at the moment. Just trying to put some kind of cap on where we stopped adding things. But people have been on Twitter going, oh, will you add this poem about Tintern Abbey? And I'm like, certainly I will, but not quite yet. But I don't want to limit it to London because there is a world outside the city, and some of it's very beautiful indeed. But then again, not every poem needs to be about a beautiful place. And we've had some ideas about actually expanding this across the world, so we'll keep you posted on that one. One feature in the app and on the website is a submissions form for people to suggest ideas for new content, either written or image-based. And people are certainly very welcome to submit their own works through this. Because whilst it might be very difficult for me to get permission to use John Benjamin's works, it takes about 8 weeks to get a response from the publisher, if people want to feature their own content, that would be very nice. It would be nice to be able to compare the old stuff with the contemporary. And by adding contemporary, it would also help us broaden the demographic of contributors, because the problem with using very old stuff is it tends to be white men in this instance, which I'm aware of, but I think we need to bring more contemporary things to solve that. Or people can suggest things and tell me I'm wrong, which I'm very happy to hear. So, expanded functionality. I mentioned that iBeacons wouldn't work because they would have to be glued to national monuments and I'd get arrested, but in some instances, if we can make partnerships, that would be useful, I think, because GPS is a little bit finicky. You need something like a diameter of 50 meters on geofence to make it probable that it's going to trigger. Because of all the buildings in London and in other places, your phone doesn't always know exactly where you are, and that can be a problem. I would like to look into also user account, like setting it up as a more social activity and direct content submission. Gamification I originally shied away from because I didn't want people to have to jump through hoops to get to content. That said, I am toying with a mechanism where there are poems that you can only access if you are running the app and stumble across them. But that will be by no means the majority, and will only be every now and then. And it will be an experiment, and if it doesn't work, we'll take it out again. Contemporary content I've mentioned. I think there's a lot of scope to collaborate going forward on this with publishers and writers and artists, and if you don't know what a GLAM is, it's a gallery, library, archive, or museum. And I will round off, if we've got enough time, with, hopefully, a little video of the app, although now a lot of you have downloaded it, so, oh well, never mind. Maybe it'll show you something you haven't watched it. Let's bring it out. app interfaces. I should say that I've had to pick the coordinates in some cases. So if it's a poem in Hyde Park, I've had to think about where in Hyde Park to put it. Or you can browse the poems as a list. The way the list works, by the way, the app does use cellular data to pull a lot of this. It's no more demanding than Facebook or anything, but the benefit of this is that we can add content and it will be there next time you boot up the app, rather than you having to update it properly through the App Store. So there you go, you can get to the map back through the poem and get directions. That opens it up in Google Maps and stuff. That's from Greenwich Hospital, which is probably better known to you as the University of Greenwich, was like a retirement home for sailors originally. And there's lots of paintings relating to that. I grew up painting it when it was new. There you go, people can sort of suggest things directly through the app. It would be super nice if they do. And that's it. I'll stop.